Hey guys, how's it going? Lagbro here, and welcome to my Transcendent Pathfinder. This build is a Scourge Arrow, Poison, Proliferation Pathfinder. Yeah, that's a tongue twister. This can also be played with a bunch of different skills like Caustic Arrow, Toxic Rain. I tried Blade Vortex as well. However, this build is more about the defenses than the offenses. So it's quite a weird build. Let me explain. So going back to the teasers they had for 3.11 Harvest, they revealed a keystone named Transcendence, which you can obtain by using a Melting Faith Timeless Jewel with Maxarius variation. Transcendence makes your armor affect elemental damage rather than physical damage, and it also lowers your maximum elemental resistance by 5%. In the background of the video, you can see me playing this build as a Poison Proliferation Pathfinder. I made it again. And I want to remind you to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out making this type of content. So let's start talking about the build. And even though we have, as you can see, we have 3.9k HP. And even though we're doing tier 16 maps quite comfortably and we're actually pretty tanky. We can tank a lot of hits. I think you're going to see a Minotaur slam as well that would just do like 1,000 damage to us. However, the downside with this build is Poison, Proliferation, Scourge Arrow is not a good single target skill. So have that in consideration if you're doing this yourself. So this guide is going to be, like I said, a bit different. We're going to be talking about defenses, and we're going to mix and match skill tree and gear for making Transcendence feel like you understand how it works. So how do we utilize Transcendence to its fullest potential? Well, we need a lot of armor, of course, else it's just useless. And it lowers our maximum elemental resistance by 5%. This means we need more armor to negate this negative here. And it also makes our armor not affect physical damage. So any physical damage hit is going to do a lot of damage to us. So how do we weigh up that downside? So there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can go like dodge. You can go acrobatics into face acrobatics, and you're going to dodge like 40% of the attacks. But it's also going to reduce your armor. So I didn't go that route. You can go for endurance charges and get physical damage reduction like that. But it's not easy getting physical damage reduction as a Pathfinder, and there's basically no physical damage reduction in the tree now. So my choice for this, and like what makes this build unique, is I try to stack as much physical taken as elemental damage. So like Lightning Coil has 30% of physical damage taken as lightning damage from hits. So that's one way to get it, and we try to stack as much as possible. So right now the build, you can see on the builds, is sitting at 84% physical damage taken as elemental damage. And some of the clips I'm also using a Dark Scorn, which is 25% of physical taken as chaos damage. So how much armor do we need to make Transcendence work or be good? I tried anything like between 10k and 80, 90, 100k. I don't feel like going for the 100k or 80k is worth it. It takes a lot of investment in both the skill tree and your your damage. It takes away from your damage. As soon as you go defense in any build, when you try to build a lot of defense, you're gonna lose damage. So you have to weigh it up with like damage or defense. The sweet spot for me with my testing, I feel, is between 20. Probably not 20, but like 30 to 50, 60,000 armor after your flasks are up. Since we're a Pathfinder, we're going to have our flasks up a lot of the time. The best way, or the reason I went Pathfinder with this, is one of the best ways to get a lot of armor, in my opinion, is the Iron Reflexes keystone in the tree. That converts evasion into armor. Converting evasion into armor means you can double dip on some notables. And like Lightning Coil has armor and evasion, so you convert that evasion part also into armor. So that's a pretty good way, for, in my opinion, to get a lot of armor. Okay, so let's start talking about the build. Like I said, this is going to be a bit different of a build guide, and we're going to jump between skill tree and gear. like all over the place. So let's start with gear. So I mentioned lightning coil. This is mandatory for the build in my opinion, because the 30% of physical damage from hits taken as lightning damage, you can't find that anywhere else. You can get a rare armor with 15%, but that's going to take us down quite a bit in the conversion part. The second thing that I think I say is mandatory, you can do it kind of without it, or halfway without it, is a Watcher's Eye with, I went for a double purity of elements with physical damage from hits taken as fire damage and physical damage from hits taken as lightning damage. This is up to 24%. I haven't divided this like good enough yet. So this is up to 24% of physical taking as elemental damage instead. So with just those two parts, we're up to 54%. After that, we're using Formless Inferno. Formless Inferno is 8% of physical damage from hits taken as fire, and it's also armor is increased by uncapped fire resistance. This is very good for us. We're getting a lot of our armor from this. It's also 841 fire systems. Armor. So we're sitting at 147 fire resistance. That means we'll get 147% increased armor. It's very good. The downside with Formless Inferno is number one, the minus fire resistance. But as you can see, that's not a problem. We also have minus lightning resistance on the lightning coil, but that's not a problem either, because like running purity of elements weighs up a lot of that. The other downside of Formless Inferno is it's very, very, very hard getting a good enchant on this. As you can see, I have Orb of Storms damage. What the hell? The reason it's very hard is no one is enchanting it. There's like 7 or 8 enchanted on the market at all. So I've been looking for a good enchant for 2 weeks and haven't found one, of course. The other thing you can do with the Formless Inferno is you can look for a corrupted one, and there's a corruption of Socketed Gems have 90% mana multiplier, and you can drop your auras in this. As you can see, we're very low on mana. And if we don't have like anything to leech off, we can't do even 2 full stacks of... Oh yeah, we could do 2, basically 2. Scourge arrows, you would really need something to leech off because, like you see, we have mana for 2 hits. So getting some reduced mana multiplier here would be very good. The next item we're going to talk about is we're going to start with the budget option, which is Dark Scorn for a bow. I played with this bow for a long time, and the bow I'm using now, the rare bow I'm using, I'm gonna show it later, is, I think it's like 12 or 15% more damage than the Dark Scorn, and it cost, well, I was lucky and I bought it super cheap, and it was still 3 times as expensive as the Dark Scorn. A Dark Scorn is very expensive in the start of a league, but now it's like 70 chaos, so it's a very cheap item. It has the most important thing about Dark Scorn is the 20% chance for poisons inflicted with this weapon to deal 300% more damage. That is insane. And it also has a 25% of physical damage from hits taken as chaos damage. So if we're using Dark Scorn, we're basically taking no physical damage. We're not taking any physical damage. We're converting 84% into elemental, and we're converting the rest into chaos damage. I have been scouring both Reddit and the forums for which order this happens in, and I can't find anything. Like if we're converting to elemental first and then converting the rest into chaos, or if we're converting into chaos first and then converting the rest into elemental, there's nowhere to be found. But my reasoning is it's the same order as the attack conversion. So if you're converting your fists into, say, fire, then into, I think it's cold, fire, it's lightning, cold, fire, whatever. Chaos damage is last. So I'm thinking it's the same order here, that chaos damage is last. So the last bit, like 25%, comes after all the conversion into elemental damage instead. So what we want on the bow, finally we get to the bow, Jesus. So what we want on the bow is the 60% chance for poisons to deal not 300%, that would be awesome, 100% more damage. So that mod is basically the same as this, it's just more consistent. So it's better for clear, in my opinion. The other mods you're looking for is flat chaos to attacks, or a high % increased physical damage on the bow. Then you want an open prefix to craft chaos damage over time multiplier. And then it's the other mods. I managed to get a bow. I was really lucky getting this bow with 35% damage over time multiplier. It's very rare. I looked at PvE crafting for both those mods, like damage over time multiplier and chance for poisons to deal 100% increased more 100% more damage. And it was like, I think it was 11,000 alterations to hit it once, or like 2,500 chaos in fossils to craft it. So I was like, I don't want to do that. So I managed to find this. It also has like chance to poison on hit. We don't need that, but increased damage to poisons. It's decent. The dexterity though, to make this bow like the #1 bow for this, we would like to remove the dexterity and then harvest craft a attack speed modifier on this. Then the bow would be like insanely good. It would like be best in slot and just crazy. However, there's no way to remove the dexterity here. So I'm kind of stuck with the dexterity. I really don't want to like annul this because the chance of hitting the dexterity is like 1 in 6, 1 in 5 actually, because you can remove the chaos damage multiplier. Or like, I think we also can craft prefixes cannot be changed and annul it, but then it's like 50-50 about removing the damage over time multiplier. And if I remove that, the item is bricked. I can just throw it away. Oh well, enough of the bow. So our other gear pieces, the other unique we're using is Circle Nostalgia. This is mainly for chaos resistance, and it's also 50% increased chaos damage right now with how I've defined it. It's like middle tier. But you gotta use Herald of Agony, so that's gonna be one of our auras. It's a very much needed attributes. I have this with intelligence implicit. That's not a coincidence. We need intelligence. Added chaos is going to be like 127 intelligence needed. I think it's 127 when it's level 5. So we kind of need the intelligence. We're kind of high on intelligence now though. Other than that, we're looking for chaos damage multiplier on all our gear pieces. So our gloves is going to be chaos damage multiplier, high evasion, very important, life, some resistance, and attack speed. The order you want to look for it is chaos damage over time multiplier, attack speed, evasion, then life, then resistance, in that order. Our amulet is going to be chaos damage over time multiplier, and if you can, chaos skill gems. You can also get dexterity skill gems as a modifier here, but those are very expensive, so I didn't, like, I self-crafted this, so I didn't want to go for crazy stuff. Some fist damage is really good, resistances, very good, and life. What you could do here is you could drop the life and you could craft minus total mana cost on the amulet as well. I don't have high enough tier craft, so I'm not going to do that yet. The last ring is basically a stat ring. So we need some strength and dexterity. We need 148 strength for our helmet. And we need, like, we can probably drop the intelligence here now though, but like we need a lot of intelligence as well. Here, we need a lot of intelligence as well. And some resistance. And if you can get like fist damage and maybe some life as well, you have a very good ring there. Our quiver is chaos damage over time multiplier. You don't need a quiver with pierce because all projectiles from Scourge Arrow pierces, so you don't need a pierce quiver. I think this is the best quiver you can get, the fist damage quiver. So chaos damage over time multiplier, fist damage, life, resistance. I went for armor and evasion. What I may, well, you can also craft chaos damage to attacks instead of the armor and evasion. However, the armor and evasion is kind of good because we convert both of that into armor, and it gives us quite a bit of armor actually. What you could do here as well is remove the fire resistance and craft a or rather harvest augment a attack speed modifier. But I mean, losing 44% increased armor, well, I haven't gone for that yet, at least. Our boots, most important here is Tailwind. Tailwind lasts for 4 seconds. If you crit recently is 4 seconds. So we can keep that up, even though we only have 10% crit chance with our Scourge Arrow. We can keep Tailwind up most of the time. I didn't go for Elusive just by that that thing that we only have 10% crit chance. And like gaining Elusive is up to 10% chance to gain Elusive on crit. So as you can see, like having a 10% crit chance, like you don't attack that often with Scourge Arrow. So we won't have Elusive that often. Not for the important stuff, not for like bosses and stuff, but we basically don't dare die when clearing. So Tailwind, some resistance, high evasion. I augmented this with movement speed and I hit 15%, and I haven't seen that freaking add or remove yet, or remove movement speed, so I'm kind of stuck with 15% movement speed. Preferably it'd be 25, 30, 35% movement speed, but yeah, you know how it goes. I opted for crafting evasion rating here, actually, because I didn't feel like we need more life. It's like, it's very rare that we get like one shot. For our belt, this is a work in progress. As you can see, we have armor on it. That's pretty good, actually. Like 183 armor. There's a lot higher tiers you can get of armor. This is a tier 4, and it's not even divine good. So I'm trying to add and remove defense modifiers on my belt, trying to hit something good. And then you want resistances. You can see we don't have quality on this yet, so we can get some more resistances. And I went for Flask effect on the craft. You can also go for damage here, or life. But I want to augment life on this, so I don't want to craft life. For our flasks, most important flask, Taste of Hate. So this takes us up to the 84% physical damage from hit, taking us blah blah damage. And it's also 20% less cold damage taken, so it's kind of good in that way. Other than that, it's pretty useless for us. Like the gain Fizz extra cold is terrible. We don't want to do any cold damage. Like 17 to 43 cold damage is ugh. So it's only a defensive flask. Next, you want a Quicksilver. I went for a Quicksilver with Curse immunity. You can go for like Adrenaline and an increased effect on this, but I don't want to swap flasks when I see a curse map, so I just have it here. A Jade Flask. I went for a Jade Flask with increased armor. Increased armor on the flask actually gives you more armor in the end than increased evasion does. That's because like increased evasion only works for our evasion gear pieces, but the increased armor, it's going to work for everything, because we're converting the evasion into armor. So that's actually better. And then of course the Witchfire Brood, it's so good in this build. You get 100% increased evasion, you get Despair Curse as an aura, and you get increased damage over time. It's just so good for any build that's using poisons or can't curse, really. Okay, so that's the gear pieces. Let's talk some about the pieces we're missing here as well. The jewels we're using are, number one mod you need is Onslaught on Kill. Like only a 4% Onslaught on Kill. We're gonna have Onslaught up a lot of the time because the clear on Scourge Arrow, Poison, Proliferation is super good. It's so good. Chaos damage to attacks, pretty good. Armor, also good. Some life. On this we got some accuracy. I'm sitting at 93% accuracy right now. Kind of want to get that up to 100%, but we'll see when that happens. Other than that, we're also using a Thread of Hope with a large ring. We put it here. Try to get as low minus resistance as possible. Or high? No, let's call it low. So minus 13. Let's try to go for minus 10 if you can. Putting it here makes us able to pick up Poisonous Fangs, which is Chaos Damage over time multi. This is attack speed and its accuracy and its damage and damage over time. Very good. Some more damage, crit strike chance. We got some more damage over time, or damage with poisons, and damage over time multi from crits. Pretty good for 1 point. And we also have some damage with bows, accuracy, movement speed, and damage over time. So a Thread of Hope here is very worth it. And then the last thing we're using is a Militant Faith, like I said, of the High Templar Maxarius version. These are very cheap. Try to get one with plus all elemental resistance. This gives us right now 22 all elemental resistance. You can see my lightning resistance is 70. If we remove that, we're at 48. So that gives us 22 all res, and it also gives us 11% reduced mana cost of skills. So that's pretty good. So let's talk about the skill tree a bit, like when we're already doing that. You start out by going just down the increased life and evasion. Super good, like both of the things we need. Some accuracy, attack speed. Life, this node is super good for us. Increased flask charges gained. Wow, so good. Strength and intelligence, we need both of them. So flask effect, like, come on. It's like all we need. Then we try to just pick up like damage in the tree. And then we pick up life close to the damage. It's like we're going for damage over time multiplier here. It's very close to pick up just the life nodes. We go for damage here, close to the life. Damage over time multi. Life. Iron reflexes, of course, I already mentioned that. Go for a large cluster jewel here with chaos damage. On the chaos damage jewels, there's a lot of different notables you can go for. One of the ones I really wanted was Touch of Cruelty, because that's a more multiplier after our, like, these multipliers. So making a monster take 10% increased damage is a more multiplier that's like last in the chain. So after you added all your damage together, you get an additional 10% because the monster takes 10% more damage. So that's very good. Unholy Grace, I mean, chaos damage attack speed, very nice. Unwavering Evil is pretty good. It means you can't be interrupted when you're doing Scourge Arrow. Pretty good. Our medium cluster jewels are increased chaos damage. Withered. Withered is a more damage multiplier as well because they take increased damage. So that's a more multiplier. This is mainly for clearing. On bosses we're gonna use Wither totems. Exposure therapy. This was very good when I started using it because I wasn't capped on chaos resistance then. Now it's basically only 10% only. It's only 10% damage over time multiplier. Oof, so bad. What I would like to change this one into is a low tolerance. Because that's 8% damage over time multiplier for poison. It's what we're doing. And the first poison you inflict deals 300% increased damage. And they stack. So having two of them gives you 600% increased damage on your first poison. That makes you clear a lot better. Like just one makes you clear a lot better than none. But like two is even better. And the last one is Eldritch Inspiration. I could also see myself changing this into Eldritch Inspiration. It's 8% chaos damage on time multiplier, but it's also 16% increased mana. Like I said, our mana is not that high. And if we remove that, we're sitting at 78. So that gives us 10 more mana to use, which is like, it's actually good. It's pretty good for like bonus stats. Like if you see this one, since we're capped on chaos resistance, this gives us nothing, basically. Like, other than 10% damage over time multiplier, but other than that, it gives us nothing. Damage over time multiplier for poisons, some life, damage over time multis, life, Transcendence, damage over time multi, and some chaos resistance. Charisma for some reduced mana restoration. If we didn't have this, we couldn't use our 3 auras we're using. And then we got some more life and some more chaos damage over time multiplier up here. So that's our skill tree. If you want to look closer at it, there's a link to Path of Building in the description, and you can look at that and like figure more stuff out. Maybe give me some tips. What I have anointed right now is Avatar of the Hunt. I would say this is like 6% movement speed is great. Evasion rating is great. Damage over time and damage with bows is great. But cooldown recovery speed of movement skills, that makes our dash have very short cooldown. So we're using dash a lot in the maps, and it feels very smooth using dash in my opinion. So that's like my favorite movement skill right now. Okay, so that's the skill tree. Let's talk about our ascendancy. and which order I want you to take them. I'm telling you which order to take them. So I always start out by going Nature's Boon. Getting Flask charges is so nice. Like, it's always nice. When you're leveling, you get Flask charges for your Quicksilver and your Silver Flask. It makes you faster. You get Flask charges for your Life Flask when you're in lab, when you're doing like the upcoming labs. So it makes you, well, more safe in lab, and just it's such a good node. This is my favorite node in any Ascendancy. Second one we go for is Nature's Reprisal. This will give you the poison proliferation. That's mainly it. Poison proliferation here. This could be named poison proliferation, which is great. It makes the poison spread amongst the enemies and kill huge packs of monsters. Then we go for Monster Toxicist. This, like our Herald of Agony is basically not going to do any damage because it's not linked. So that part doesn't matter. But it gives you more chaos damage with attack skills, and it gives you 40% chance to deal 100% more damage during Flask effect with poisons. That's very good. That's a very good node. And then Fizz converted to chaos. I guess that's fine. The Fizz as extra chaos doesn't really matter because we don't have that much Fizz on our bow. The last Ascendancy, you have a choice between Master Alchemist, which I went for. This is for immunity to ailments. This is why we don't need like immunity to freeze on in the Flask or burning or shock and stuff. So that's a very good node in that sense. But like the two other stat lines here doesn't matter for us. Like, we're not doing any elemental damage and we're not freezing, shocking, or shelling. So doesn't matter at all. The other option you can go for is Nature's Adrenaline. This is for some movement speed and attack speed. It's very good. Some people go for this. The reason I don't want to go for this is at least I have to drop my armor here. And that gives a lot of armor. I have to drop my armor here and get freeze immunity. At the least. We're probably also going to have to drop curse immunity and get like shock immunity, because shock kills you a lot of the time. So I'd rather have this and have a bit less movement speed and attack speed. The last option you could go for is like grabbing this and like this for some Flask effect. You'll get 5% more Flask effect, but no. I think this is the best. This is the best. Okay, let's talk about our skill gems. So our skill gems, our main link is going to be Scourge Arrow. Of course, it's a Scourge Arrow build. Deadly Ailments, one of the best supports for poison. It's 63% more damage. Wild Toxins, 49% more damage, and it's also a stacking up to 9 with an additional more damage. So that's very good. Mirage Archer, that's probably the best support ever for Scourge Arrow, because Mirage Archer always charges up to 5 stacks before it releases. So that adds a lot of high damage poisons to your single target and also your clear. Awakened Added Chaos, let's talk about Infused Channeling first. Infused Channeling gives you more damage, and also Infusion gives you even more damage, so that's 49% more damage in total, and it also gives you 10% damage reduction from the damage types matching the skill gem tag. So this is the skill gem you're looking at. So Infused Channeling, when you have the buff up, this is the buff, Infusion, you take 8% less damage of attack, projectile, channeling, chaos, and bow. However, there's no bow attacks. There's no monster attacks classified as bow. I don't think there's any channeling either. Maybe there's some. I can't think of any. But there's attack, projectile, and chaos. So you take 8% less damage of attack, projectile, and chaos, which is very good. And you're always going to have Infused Channeling up because you only need to channel for 0.5 seconds. And how many stacks do you have? You have 3 stacks of Scourge before you get that. So yeah, you're going to have it up all the time. The last link in our 6th link is going to be Awakened Chaos. The reason for this is, I mean, there's 2 choices here. It's Awakened Chaos, which gives you chaos damage to attacks, or it's Unbound Ailments. Unbound Ailments gives you more, I think it's more ailment damage. I don't know where I have it. Never mind. I think it's more ailment damage, and it's also ailment duration. So it makes your poisons last longer. If you're looking at in Path of Building, Unbound Ailment gives you more total poison damage. But that is if your poisons last the full duration. Chaos Damage Support gives you more damage over time. Or like damage over time DPS. Damage over time, damage per second. Yeah. It gives you more poison damage per second. Because it's harder hits, but the poison duration is shorter. The reason Unbound Ailments seems like it has more damage is because of the extra duration. So for say Claire, you're not gonna have your full duration poisons, so you don't need that. For like bosses, you're gonna have your full poison durations on some bosses, but like on the bosses that matter, like Cyrus, it's very rare that you use your full poison duration because he goes into his freaking invulnerable stages all the time. So it's better just hit hard and try to get as much damage in as possible for just a short duration. Just get your poisons in there. So that's our main 6 link. Our defensive link is going to be cast one damage taken level 1 with a Molten Shell. You can go for a Molten Shell level 10. I went for a Molten Shell level 1 because I'm lazy. I didn't want to... I know if I start leveling this, it's just going to be level 14 eventually. And it's not going to proc with my cast one damage taken. I'm going to buy a new Molten Shell and I'm going to start leveling it again. And I'm going to go leveling it, you know how it is. However, with our Flasks up and cast one damage taken proccing, we get like 9.2 or 9.3k armor, shield. So it's not really necessary to get like a level 10. You could go for a Vol Molten Shell here as well, but with the changes to Vol Molten Shell that it, like, normal Molten Shell overwrites it, excuse me, I didn't feel like I wanted to use that. So, other than that, our auras are Malevolence, more damage over time, great. Purity of Elements, that's for the Watcher's Eye, and also, you know, helps out with the elemental resistance. And Herald of Agony, and that's for the ring. So there's not a lot of choices you can do here. I've been trying to drop Malevolence and go for Determination to get... That's how you get up to those 100k armor, by the way. But that's not worth it. And you need to link these with Enlighten, or you're not going to be able to use any skills at all. Other than that, our utility, we have a Wither spell totem, multiple totems. We use this only on the bosses. You can have 3 totems up, not just 2. So you put up 3 totems and they spam Wither on the boss and you get up to those 15 Wither stacks pretty fast. You can also have faster casting linked to this, but I haven't fixed that yet. Other links we're using is, like I said, Dash with Second Wind. We need to corrupt this and we need to make this quality. But like I said, it's very fast to just dash around. And links that doesn't have to be linked we're using is a Blood Rage for attack speed and Frenzy Charges. Frenzy Charges, more damage as well. And a Plague Bearer. Plague Bearer we use for like League encounters, Legion encounters. And like when a boss is low on HP, because there's a downside to Plague Bearer. Plague Bearer makes your poisons deal 20% less damage when like the Plague Bearer is filling up. You see our Plague Bearer is at 0, so it has to fill up to 1.1 million first, and then you're starting doing your maximum damage again. So I only use this basically for like finishing off a boss or stuff like that. I'm also realizing I have an awakened Unbound Ailments that I'm leveling. So here we have the more damage with ailments and increased duration of ailments. So we have it there. So that's the skill gems we're using. Any changes we could make to this? I don't really think so. Like if I had the helmet with 90% mana multiplier, we could squeeze in a lower level precision and get our hit chance up to like 96 maybe. But that's what we could do. For our major gods, or our pantheons, major god, I have Soul of Akali right now. The reason we have Soul of Akali is like we don't take that much damage from hits. We take damage from damage over time. So like when we get a bleed on us, it's very important that we get our bleed immunity off very fast. I used to have bleed immunity on the Quicksilver, so I basically had it up all the time. I recently switched it to the Life Flask to get the armor effect here. So we're gonna see how that works. It's gonna be iffy, I think. So the main damage we take is damage over time. So Solo Varicali is a good choice. We can also go for Solo Solaris for some fist damage reduction against bosses, basically. Like one monster is almost always going to be a boss. We can also go for Solo Lunaris for some more safety when we're clearing. I wouldn't go for this one though. I would rather go for Solo Solaris. Or we could go for Solo the Briny King for the stun immunity. Not stun immunity, but if you've been stunned recently, you can't be stunned again. So you don't get stun locked. For our minor gods, Solo Shakari upgraded, it could always be good because you can't have more than 5 poisons. However, with 76 chaos resistance, poisons aren't really that dangerous. So, I mean, that could be a choice. It's also reduced chaos damage taken, which is pretty good. Right now, I have Soul of Abrath. That is because Burning Ground can be quite annoying when you're at 70, like maximum resistance, and you also have a life pool of 4k. It kind of bursts you, like makes some damage to you. The other option you could go for is Yugal, of course, if you upgrade it for some reduced cold damage taken. There's also the Soul of Grutkull. Not many people are using this, but this could actually be pretty good. So it's additional physical reduction for each hit you've taken recently, up to a maximum of 5%. And since we're not using any block, we're not using any evasion, we're not using any dodge, everything hits us. So we're being hit a lot, but we're not taking damage, but we're being hit. So we can still use this for some 5% reduction right there. And then of course, Solar Slotha, if you upgrade it, get the 60% increased life recovery from Flasks when you're on low life. That's gonna instantly fill your, like using an instant flask, you're instantly gonna fill you up to full life. So that's the build guide, and I must say I've really enjoyed making this character and really enjoyed playing it. And like going for, like an argument could be made here for going more life. However, going for more life, you need some other method of regaining your life as well. If you have a life pool of 8k, but you have no regen, you're gonna have to flask it up. So going low life, basically low life, your flasks are gonna be more effective. So using this, we gain like, probably with our flask effect, we're probably getting like 1.5k out of it, which is almost half our life. But if you have 8k life and you get 1.5k, that's like 20% of your life. So there's an argument to be made here for staying low life, and that's the reason I've also been like avoiding it, kinda. Like in the skill tree, we haven't picked up that much life. We haven't like made sure we have life on every gear piece, because we want to stack more evasion and into armor. So you see when I park my flask, we're at 47k. A thing you could also do, which is new now, is the Wind Dancer. I've been trying to play a bit with the Wind Dancer. This gives us more. This gives you more armor after you've been hit. So after you've been hit recently. However, like the first attack, I feel that does more damage to us than if we didn't have the 20% the 40% less evasion and 20% less damage taken. I feel like the first attack actually does more damage to us. So I think this increases the chance of us getting one shot a tiny bit. But if we survive the first attack, then we actually get more armor and more survivability. So it's a toss up there. I think it's worse for bosses, but better for clearing. So that concludes the guide, and before I go into some tips and tricks on leveling this, I would like to remind you to, if you watch this far, you gotta like the video and you gotta subscribe to the channel. So let's go into some leveling tips and how you could just get this both solo self-found and twinked. So for a twinked character, let's start with that. That's probably like a month into the league. That's probably what most people are doing. The best way, in my opinion, to do this is with a Quillrain and a Tabula, of course, and then you go just normal Wanderlust, Gold Rim, you go for, what's the gloves called? Yeah, the Lochtoniel Caress, those gloves. And then you go Toxic Rain. And you go for Toxic Rain until you're like level 70, basically. Because you kind of need the... Like, you kind of need Dark Scorn, that's 62. You kind of need the armor, maybe. You need, like, quite a bit of stuff to make Scourge Arrow pretty good. So that's the first option, going just Toxic Rain, and you go with Quill Rain, and you can just level that up to... like as far as you want to go. You basically don't need to change any gear. The other option is to go the Stormcloud and then into the Tempest. I have a build guide for this for Twink leveling, and you go Lightning Arrow and you just go with that. The downside with that is the skill tree is not the same as the one we're using. When you're using Toxic Rain to level, you can go into the same skill tree that we're using in this build. Basically, from the start. You might want to pick up some more damage in the beginning. Just go the like the damage nodes here, like these. Let's see, there's the attack speed. It's like you go into the attack speed here, and then you go down, and then you swap over to this, like later. But Toxic Rain can go straight into the other tree. Sure, the Stormcloud Tempest is going to be faster, but like Regrets are pretty expensive this league. So for solo self-found leveling this, the best way in my opinion is, again, Toxic Rain. I think leveling with Toxic Rain is great. So just pick up damage nodes as fast as you can. Just go into the tree we've been showing here. You can start using Toxic Rain at level 12. And just go for a bow with high attack speed. And make sure you use Mirage Archer. Mirage Archer with Toxic Rain, like... in difference with Caustic Arrow, Toxic Rain gives you more damage with Mirage Archer, even on single targets, because it stacks. But you're gonna need, I mentioned Caustic Arrow, you're gonna need some extra single target on leveling with Toxic Rain as a solo self-found character with no gear in the start. So use a Caustic Arrow. Do not link that with Mirage Archer, because that does nothing for you. So Caustic Arrow, link it with as many damage links as you possibly can, and just go Toxic Rain and Caustic Arrow. Okay, that's gonna be it for me, guys. I want to thank you all so much for watching this far. It's been a long video, but I really wanted to show you this concept I've been working on, and I'm gonna keep working on this and probably try out some other characters as well. So keep an eye out for that, and have a nice one, guys. Goodbye.